all that, getting hit multiple times. Coming out of that bike section, more drivers coming to blows.
race fans, to the start of another thrilling event of the Sim Racers Group Formula 4 Series. Round 3 is coming to you live on slow motion broadcasting. Today, we are at the Temple of Speed, the Autodromo Nacional Monza, also known as the Monza Circuit, a low downforce course with high-speed straights, heavy braking chicanes, and as any seasoned race fan knows, the treacherous turn 1 lap 1 chaos that can shake up any form of race on this circuit. It will certainly have these drivers pushed to their limits for the full 20 minutes of today's event. Monza Circuit, built in 1922 just north of Milan in Italy, it is the oldest circuit in mainland Europe and the third oldest built racetrack in the world, behind Brooklands in the UK and the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in the United States. At 3.6 miles and 11 turns, the track is really made from 6 corner complexes, broken into 2 chicanes, 2 Lesmo corners, and the famous Ascari chicane, which leads the run into the final Parabolica corner. The drivers will have to be precise if they want to find themselves upon the top of the podium. I'm Kennan Miller on the call. Alongside me is Ron Maunz. These beautiful images are being produced by Ron Maunz's clone, Ron Maunz. Last week, Ron, we saw Max Lotto put a dominant effort in his victory at the Hungaroring. The conditions today, albeit we were expecting some rain, and it is getting a little foggy out there. So far, the track has stayed dry and fairly favorable. So what are you looking forward to? I think this is going to be quite an exciting race.
Yeah, well, I think to round off the year of 2025 here in the Sim Racers Group F4 world, we're going to have a pretty fun one. We saw last season changeable conditions play havoc into some of these racers' plans there as well. So here at Monza, I think we're going to see the rain, if it does play a factor, really affect these racers from the start all the way through to the finish. But even if we just have some fog in the sky and some pretty low visibility, the challenge of this racetrack is really going to bite these racers hard. Just got a prime example there with Max Lotto whacking the curb heading off through the second chicane. These curbs around this racetrack, I think there's one way to describe them, Kennan, and that is absolutely brutal.
Yes, it really is. Some of the curbs you are able to take advantage of. Many of them will really unsettle these low-floored cars of a Formula 4 race car. And as we're looking on, Jose Navas, nobody has yet to put a time quite yet on the board. Everybody on their first laps now. We're just past 3 minutes into qualifying, and let's take a look on board. Running down the second to last straight into the SRG chicane, going right over that curve. That's one where you see those yellow bump stops, just like you talked about, Ron. That's really the limit of the track. You can use the normal curb, but you find yourself slipping off, and it's certainly going to unsettle the car. And then this is just an absolute high-speed corner. Jose Navas trying to maybe see if he gets a little tow from the car in front of him. I think that might be Aaron Van Wagner. I can't quite tell. But this, the famous parabolic chicane or curve, where everything counts on the speed for the run into turn one. You'll see a lot of moves being set up coming out of that corner. It's really where you'll see the drafting take effect and where we're going to see a lot of passes. So now we're starting to see some times come in. Jacob Guyton so far at the top of the board. Isaac Amon comes in third, and there goes Adam Duvall jumping up to second with David Borden falling into third. Everybody so far, you can see them all somewhat spaced out, keeping quite a nice line out of the corner for most cars, and we're just getting first lap times in. Certainly the draft will play an effect, Ron. I think you can certainly speak to that, but that's where a lot of our passes will be made today. It's very high-speed straights, very tight corners. There's not a whole lot of opportunity to really make it in the corner.
Yeah, no, this is a super tough racetrack to try and get some moves done. Even in these little F4 cars where you've got the massive slipstreaming opportunities, you got to think about where you can use those slipstream runs. You know, obviously, you have the chicane, turn number one here on this lap. You can see it right there, tucked into the wilderness. But that chicane kind of lends itself to having very sketchy moments all around, drivers banging into each other, either hitting a curb and firing into one another. Whatever the case may be, turn one, always tricky to try and nail down here in these machines. And then you think about that second chicane. We just saw it there with Max Lotto right as we were getting this broadcast up and rolling, how tricky it is to go through that section without running into some sort of difficulty. And then you think about the other chicane on this layout, the Ascari chicane. We saw it really put on full display, and we see it once again from Lotto. Big curb whack. He's struggling out there. A big hit into the wall. Thankfully, that damage going to get repaired. Lickily split. No damage here in this series. However, Lotto yet to set a lap time on the board, kind of underscoring the real trickiness of this track from the three chicanes to the other sections of this racetrack. Take Parabolica, for instance, or the Lesmo curves that I always find a little bit tricky personally. This track is chock full of challenges. It may be the temple of speed, but my oh my, the turns around here are quite the menace.
That's absolutely spot on. You see Max Lotto having that heavy mistake. I thought he actually was able to keep control of the car, but I think maybe just knew he wasn't going to get the lap time he needed and chose to abort the lap going back out there. And now we're looking on board with David Borden, top of the pole right now. So ahead by 4/10, and I spoke too soon. There goes Traber Burns right to the top of the board. So Traber Burns, our victor in week one, or round one here, pulls in a 153.058, and that is right in line with what he ran in practice so far. The conditions still very similar to what these drivers had for practice. We're still looking on the radar. Rain may make it, rain may not make it. Just really depends on the timing. But drivers are really turning off about what they did in practice. I think they're really already reaching optimal performance of these cars just under 7 minutes into qualifying. And there we look at Traber Burns. Has a beautiful looking paint scheme with that 541, and shown himself as a newcomer to the Sim Racers Group Formula 4 Series as one to be reckoned with. This is actually a good opportunity. We can take a look at the points because he is also our points leader, and just narrowly, though, I believe, after last week's action and Max Lotto getting the victory at the Hungaroring. And there we see it. Traber Burns only ahead by 1 point over Max Lotto. Both newcomers to the Sim Racers Group Formula 4 Series and absolutely putting on a thrill so far, and definitely the front runners to possibly win this championship. And you see Jacob Guyton still having a nice open to the season, and David Borden 4th and David Hirsch 5th. We've got quite a good run there, just about 14 points separating the top 5. So points are looking quite good right now. Everybody's somewhat getting settled in. The season here at Sim Racers Group Formula 4, it is a 12-week season with 2 drop weeks, so we will be able to kind of get a clearer picture about 4 or 5 weeks from now, but certainly you can tell who the front runners will be, whether there's drop weeks or not. And there we see Sarvez going into pit lane. Looked like he didn't think he had quite the lap that run, but everybody so far haven't had any improvements on the leaderboard in the last little bit. And there goes Bob Eggert getting into the top 5. Runs quite a nice time there, a 153.900. So really nice run there for Bob Eggert as we see him going, and has Greg Meyer right in front of him. So maybe a little help with the toe. Certainly going to be something you have to take advantage for here as we look into the race. But just getting into just over 6 minutes left in this qualifying. Everybody will probably get another good 4, maybe 5 more shots at it. I don't know, how much lower do you think these lap times can go, Ron?
It's kind of tough to judge at this exact moment. One thing that we have talked about already, and you mentioned as well in reference to seeing Greg Meyer right in front, the draft is going to affect how well these races can run here in qualifying. And that can certainly play a massive role in deciding how quick these lap times go, how low they go. Looking at the weather, though, and how it has developed, not seeing any rain, although I thought I saw a couple of spritzes. The track is most certainly cool. I think it is fair to say. 65 degrees Fahrenheit for the ambient temperature, 66 Fahrenheit for the track temp. That is about as low as it goes on iRacing, so these competitors going to have a very cold track to worry about, but I think the draft is probably going to be the main thing that ekes out a bit more time out of these racers. Just saw a good lap from Max Lotto. He finally sets a lap time on the board in the number 3 car. Fittingly bumps himself up into 3rd. But I think we got Cooker coming on here from Adam Duvall in the number 13 car, currently qualified in 5th. About 7/10 off the pole. Let's see what he can do as he comes to the line, Kennan.
Yeah, he looked to get out of the Parabolica quite nicely. Chooses the middle line, and he does. Gets up to 3rd on the board with what time did he run? A 153.236. So that is a really nice time there by Adam Duvall. 2/10 quicker than his fastest in practice. So kind of to your point, they've got a cold track. You do see a little bit of slipping and sliding, but the way this high speed, heavy braking, you don't really have to rely on losing the rear end as much. You've got to get the car slowed down and settled in anyways. I think they're kind of able to find a little more speed. And there we see Adam Duvall taking another hot lap, it looks like. So still not satisfied. And I think this is one of those tracks where you really you can stay out, run some good laps if you keep it nice and consistent and manage the tires. By the 4th or 5th lap, you'll lighten the fuel load, and that can make all the difference when you're going down these long straightaways. Now we look on board with Ken Glasser, who actually I forgot to mention in the points, but he is in 7th place right now in points, coming off a 10th and 11th place victory. He has been Mr. Consistency. He has kept his car clean through a full out monsoon in round 1, and it has certainly benefited him as we see him loop it around there going through turn 1. That's just a little quick on the gas, but he has certainly put himself into a nice spot to have a good championship points run as well. And certainly one worth pointing out is he's consistent, and Monza can certainly be one of those tracks where there's a lot of mistakes. He could certainly be someone I see competing up for the top 5 if all the cards kind of go his way. So see Max Lotto goes a little wide, headed to the stripe. We'll see if he can get to the top of the board. And it doesn't look like he improved his lap time. So still there with a 153.313. May have been an outlap possibly. I don't think so though. And then we'll go back to Jacob Guyton. See if he has any kind of improvement on his time as well, and doesn't. So he's still sitting at a 153.623. Do think it's one thing worth noting. Our last time we were out here, Ryan Chia, who does not look to have brought the car onto the grid for today's event, was our winner last time out. However, Jose Navas and Greg Meyer finishing second and third, currently running in a 7th and 9th on the qualifying board. They put together an absolutely brilliant class of racing, a lot of trading back and forth, a little heavy on the draft, weren't quite able to make a run on Ryan Chi on that final lap, but just those are guys I'd certainly look out for. I don't expect them to still sit 7th and 9th, although time is starting to run out on these drivers. Just 2.5 minutes left in qualifying. They've really got to be out of pit lane at this point if they want a chance at one more attempt. And there we go, looking at Dan Clark sitting in 15th and actually falls back as Shane Chang jumps above him and gets into 15th with a 1:55.347. So we're starting to see a lot of the drivers with the best times. We're getting top 7 all separated within 9/10 of each other. So it's certainly close. And I think the expectation, like many Monza races, you can really see with these Formula 4 cars, only 160 horsepower. We'll certainly see trains form up, a lot of drafting. You'll see a lot of packs, and sometimes you won't always make a move. You'll choose to follow behind, maybe put pressure on, see if you can force a mistake from the car in front. But that's kind of what we're looking forward to right now. Trevor Burns leads, except I spoke too soon again, and Maxlin Lotto jumps to the top of the pole, and you see he pulls his car over, runs a 1:53.014, just separated by 4 thousandths off of each other, which is incredible. And here's Trevor Burns flying through his scar, using every bit of that chicane and that curbing as he is on an absolute flyer. You can see he doesn't have really any toe in front of him, but it looks like he's given it everything he can on this attempt. He will have a chance for one more lap if he doesn't get it. A nice entry all the way down into the parabolica, all the way into those curbs. Gets on the gas quite nicely. The car looks to be right under him. Takes that cut line the shortest way you can to get to the line. Everything you can do. We'll see if he's able to get himself to the top. And he does. He does. We've got a late qualifying battle between Trevor Burns and Maxlin Lotto. Trevor Burns right back to the top of the board at 1:52.845. Now the gap is only separated by 1/10, Ron. This is just absolutely madness for a qualifying session.
Yeah, really topsy-turvy. Looked like it was just the Trevor Burns show, and then Maxlin Lotto jumping up, now Burns jumping back in tow. Really shows you that these two have been the class of the field. Some different cases in terms of these racers, it must be said. I gotta say, at least from my experience covering last week's action at the Hungaroring, of course, this here, I'll be on production duties a little bit later on, so this will be the last that you probably hear of me commentating Sim Racers Group action here in Season 1 of 2026. But I will say, I think Trevor Burns has, I wouldn't necessarily say stuck at, but what I've seen from him more than most is a driver who really has a lot of speed, but is a little bit on the inconsistent end. I've seen a little bit of that thus far, but of course, a lot of these racers just dipping their toes into iRacing for the very first time, so it can take a little while for them to fully get into the groove, get into the swing of things, and get that consistent running. That's a great thing about the Sim Racers Group. We have seen some drivers starting off in iRacing, make their way up through the ranks, and end up in the F3 series that you can also catch here on Slow Motion Broadcasting every single Wednesday. Go round off the year of 2025 in style with the SRG F3 series running at the Hockenheim Ring tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. A lot of action to look forward to here on SMB, but for these F4s, looks like qualifying is just about wrapped up. David Bourne not able to improve. He's going to be starting this race at best in 3rd as we look at James McDonald out there on the racetrack, currently qualified in 8th in that always fantastic to look at Bumblebee machine, looking to buzz his way up the running order a little bit, about 1.2 seconds off of the pole. We'll see if anybody can improve in the dying breath of this qualifying session. If anyone can do it, it could be Rudy Samudio right behind, getting a big draft personal best in Sector 1 and Sector 3, although Sector 2 and Sector 4 weren't ideal. We'll see what he can do as he comes across the line. This will be just about the final lap here in this session. If he can work it out well, that will be fantastic for him. Currently qualified in P19. Will he improve? Survey says I don't believe he will. So that's going to be P19 still for Rudy Samudio. I believe that'll just about do it here in qualifying. We will get into that race in a couple of moments' time. But Kennan, what a barn burner of a qualifying session, and we still have to wonder about that rain maybe coming up in this race.
Oh, absolutely. We're really keeping our eyes on the radar. It has crept in, and time I do think jumps just a tick forward, not too much as we leap over into the race session. So we'll have to see how things really kind of change in terms of where this storm hits, but it is a pretty decent little storm that looks like it may make it to the racetrack possibly by the end of the race. Now, if it is a late coming storm, we will maybe see all the drivers stay on dry tires. It may not be enough time to quite take over the track, but as we're kind of coming live here from the Monza circuit, we'll get ready to bring up our starting grid for you as all the drivers are back in the paddock, getting the car ready, tuned. They're all kind of anxious, I think, themselves to see what kind of weather they're getting, and could make for an interesting race. I, for one, hope we get a nice dry contest. It'll certainly prove to have a little more better racing. The rain, it really kind of will separate the field some more. With the dry track in Monza, it really always makes for just an absolutely thrilling race between a lot of competitors, and almost feels like a horse race where so many drivers have an opportunity to win. And there we do see on the camera, it is dripping just a little bit, but we'll have to kind of keep an eye on what kind of tires these drivers look to choose. It looks like many of them choosing to bring the car out on the dry tires. So let's get you to our starting grid. On the pole, Traber Burns, absolutely ripper at the end of qualifying, a 152.845. Max Lotto alongside him, just 1/10 behind. David Borden on row 2, starting next to him, Adam Duvall, Jacob Guyton, Bob Eggert in row 3, Jose Navas, and James McDonald in row 4. Greg Meyer and Brian Rice in row 5, Sarah Vase and Ken Glasser in row 6. Then we've got Michael Wynn and Nathan Perkins, a new driver to the Sim Racers group tonight, his first outing here on the grid. Looking forward to see how he performs in row 6. And then we got Shane Chung and Dan Clark in row 7. Isaac Ammon and Ken Eastep in row 8. And Rudy Samudio, Albert Diaz inside Nathan, rounding out 19th, 20th, and 21st. So quite a full grid here. You can really see the rain coming down. All but possibly 3 drivers, it looks like, have maybe chosen to start on the dry tire. It is a good little storm coming in, but the track is still considered mostly dry. So we'll have to see what happens here as the lights get ready and they're on, and we'll wait for them. Away they go. We have a race. Traber Burns with a really nice start on the outside. Max Lotto safely behind, but then there comes behind him David Borden, tucking in behind Max Lotto, wanting to maybe look at the inside. This is where so much treacherousness can happen. You can see a lot of gingerness going through between the entire field. Max Lotto getting a little bit of a better exit. They're side by side for the lead as we come out of turn 2. The rain is starting to fall. Pretty little sketchy move there, but everybody looking to get clean so far. I don't see any kind of incidents through the back. Actually a pretty good move. Isaac Ammon up 5 positions already, and Albert Diaz already up 4. So here we run into the second chicane. Max Lotto looking inside, and he does make the move on Traber Burns. Traber Burns settles right in behind him. He's not able to do much with it, but that's exactly the kind of racing we're looking to see, Ron. Everybody gets off to a clean start. Looks like everybody through the second chicane still quite nicely. We're off to a good race, I believe. Look at that pack side by side all over.
Yeah, we've got side-by-side battling all throughout this field, looking at Bob Eggert and Jacob Guyton squabbling up as they head their way out of the second. Lesmo as it once again flares up in a side-by-side battle up at the front. Traber Burns jumping in front of Max Lotto. He may have had a mistake heading out of the second. Lesmo hearing that he may have had an off-track moment. We'll take a look at that in a couple of moments' time. The top 3 have broken away into their own little pack. Traber Burns and Max Lotto still duking it out as they head their way out of the Ascari chicane in this small little crackling run down into the Parabolica. They're once again running off into the rain, dancing in the rain if you would. Max Lotto trying to sweep around the outside, and he's got to make the move stick.
Yeah, it looked like Traber Burns maybe thought the best of it. Didn't want to have any too early of a collision, but this is quite incredible for just the opening lap. We've got the top 3 clearly kind of getting themselves a little separation from Adam Duvall in 4th, but as we know, the way they'll get racing side by side, it's going to back them up. They can still see some runners be able to come in, and there we look off the rear. Max Lotto, Traber Burns doing everything he can, kind of almost peeking. I don't see much spray, but maybe trying to find a good line, but you see backing off a little early, taking it safe. And there goes Max Lotto. Has to cut. That's going to be a slowdown penalty. He's going to have to give up the lead and clear that black flag. May even have to let David Borden by there. But now we see side by side, Traber Burns is back into the lead. And there goes David Borden looking to make a move on Max Lotto. This is going to be a non-stop event, I think, between these 3 drivers. David Borden certainly One we haven't spoken about much throughout this pre-race, but he has proven he is here to try and take a win as well, and he is hanging on quite nicely with Traber Burns now running in second.
As we saw Jose Navas in the midst of some battling a little bit farther behind, he's going to try and maybe get a move done on Jacob Guyn into Lesmo. One Guyn going to run wide. This will give the opportunity to Navas. Right now, though, something's going on with Traber Burns. He's going off the circuit, spinning off the track big time for him. Be careful on the rejoin. Just as things went wrong for Max Lotto at the start of this lap, things going to go bad for Traber Burns halfway through it. That is a heartbreaking mistake for him.
That is absolutely devastating after such a fantastic opening first lap and a half, but as we can kind of see through the trees, not quite the greatest shot there, but there we see him coming through the first Lesmo. Looks like everything's pretty good and under control. Gets on it, and you see just a little too much speed, brings it in. The curb, I don't think, played much of a factor in that, but that's enough that around he goes and drops himself way back, losing 10 or more positions there. You can see the field just absolutely blasting by him, and he finds himself in 13th now with quite a long climb to go if he wants to get himself back up into a good finishing position. But right now we've got Max Lotto, who's already retaken the lead over David Borden. David Borden right beside him. And this is going to be a wild one. You can see all the orange, all the yellow, all the drivers just running back and forth, back and forth. And there goes David Borden side by side with Max Lotto going into turn one. Let's see how this works out for him. David Borden on the outside has to think about it. Max Lotto with a beautiful move really lunges that car deep into the corner and gets a nice exit. David Borden kind of had to back up. And now we've got massive collision. In turn one, Jose Navas is around. Greg Myers involved. James McDonald is involved. Oh my gosh, we'll have to go back and look at that. But there's several cars that have been involved right in turn one, and that is something we normally see on lap one. But these Formula 4 cars, the 160 horsepower, is really easy to see it. And there we kind of see over the top. It looks like maybe the car in front of Navas maybe had an issue, but it looks like Navas would have been the first car around there, and several cars coming into it. James McDonald, Greg Meyer, all of them there. And yeah, now we kind of look onto it. Jose Navas side by side with Greg Meyer. Oh, and there was just a little contact. I think Navas thought he had the gap to be able to close it off on Greg Meyer. Unfortunately, Greg Meyer was there, and then you see Navas just having a little bit of issue. But fortunately, these Formula 4 cars in the Sim Racers group, they do no damages on or anything, so they'll all be able to get back underway pretty well. It is the matter of losing the time and positions. But here we see several cars going off, and I think so far, really to note, all these cars that we're noting spinning are on dry tires. I don't know if that's playing an effect to it, but the track has been deemed now from mostly dry to very lightly wet. So I think we're kind of seeing this rainstorm start to play an effect, and I think the drivers just aren't really able to tell just how wet this track really is, being so fresh to it. They had all practice in the dry. They kind of get themselves comfortable with where their brake markers are and feeling pretty comfortable with it, and then all of a sudden you just have to shift the mindset around. It's absolutely terrorizing these Sim Racers Group Formula 4 drivers so far.
Yeah, I think it's been an unnerving day behind the wheel for these racers up to this point. I think that is very much so fair to say. Keeping an eye on all of it to see what kind of compounds all these racers are running. The top 14 entirely on dry. Shane Shen is currently running on wets at the moment, so he's out there on the circuit in P15. Other drivers on wets include Ken Estep, who's down here in P19, and Brian Rice, who we saw have a spin a little bit earlier on. But jumping back to this shot and following Ken Estep right here, he's currently running in 19th, and you can't really see it too well heading off through the chicane. Oh, but you can see him running a little bit wide, talking about how this racetrack was starting to get a little bit damp. I think the gearbox shot may sell it quite a bit more than the outboard shots do. We are starting to see a significant amount of spray come off the back of these cars, significant at least compared to what we started with. So things are starting to change, maybe for the better in some drivers' cases. Others may say for the worse. I know for sure that my graphics card is starting to burn as Michael Huynh burning his tires with a half spin through Lesmo 2.
Yeah, it does a nice job of getting things corrected, able to pull right there in front of James McDonald, who's trying to pull off a recovery drive after that incident being collected in turn one. But you're kind of absolutely right. You can really see the spray. It's just getting heavier and heavier. really makes you think just how much you're having to back up the car, really take it easy on the curbs.
Oh.
Here we see side by side Jacob Guyton with a move, and here comes Traber Burns. Already back up, looking to make a move for 6. Traber Burns going to try an outside move in Parabolica. So that is a quite a 4-car cluster. We know Traber Burns fell as far back to 14th after his spin on the second lap, and they're 3 wide. Oh, they're 3 wide. A little bit of backing off had to be happened by Isaac Hammond there. A very wise move, but unfortunately it falls him back a little bit, and now we've got Traber Burns, Jacob Guyton, Greg Meyer all looking to go 3 wide across in front of us on the front stretch. You see that spray is just getting heavier. The rain is coming down. We are only just past 8 minutes in this race with just under 12 minutes to go. The way these conditions have really ramped up, you think where we'll be about 8 more minutes from now, and this track is going to be quite treacherous. It makes you wonder at what point will these drivers have to consider to take on wets to even complete the race.
As we saw some shortcuts as they headed their way off through the chicane, this racetrack is starting to fall off a cliff. Everybody dealing with more and more grip-related concerns. Jacob Guyton still has to serve a slowdown after cutting his way through the chicane at the start of this lap. So, Traber Burns also got to do that as well. Sarah Vase followed in suit. These dry tire runners are really starting to struggle with grip. My timing tower is lighting up. That's James McDonald. He's off the circuit out of the second chicane. I think he may have been joined in that off-track excursion by Isaac Amon, who's also slow. Everybody's starting to worry about grip, as there you can see it put on full display. Isaac Amon running super wide off through the turn. Traber Burns has had a moment. Yes, he has. He's gone off the circuit running in 10th. Things have gone from bad to worse for him. We can see Amon spin farther in the back. The rain's coming down. It is getting treacherous out there on the circuit. If we could ride on board with one of these racers, you're going to start to see the standing water begin to accumulate out there on the racetrack. The drivers are going to have to try and crank in a bit more crank on that steering wheel just to even lumber around these turns. These nimble and light F4 cars are rapidly turning into power boats.
Yeah, absolutely right. These things are just over 1,200 pounds, and as low to the ground as they are, it's so easy to hydroplane the car, get the
David Borden down the
up
pits.
Over it. And David Borden, our first driver to go down 3rd place, choosing to come down early. He's certainly going to be changing to the wet tires. I think he has seen now just how much of a madhouse this racetrack has become, and it was kind of leading to the point 16, 17, 18, 19th, Shane Chung, Ken Estep, Brian Rice, and Ken Glass are all on the wets right now. If all these cars in front have to take on wets, they're in a very advantageous position to have quite a good little advantage in jump-in positions. And we've seen so many drivers go back and forth, but there's Jose Navas with a dicey move on Jacob Guyton going by him, and he wants Greg Meyer too. He's certainly looking racy right now as they're all still on the dry tires. The top 10 are still on the drive tires. There we see David Borden comes out of pit lane in 11th position, 7 seconds behind 10th and James McDonald, but he will be our leader of the wet tire race so far.
Whoa!
And there we have contact between Guyton and Novice. No, they both get away. It kind of turns out to be light contact. Maybe just a little tap there, but lucky that it wasn't worse than what it was. And we see Sar Vase having a really nice run up and forth, and there's Greg Meyer, spins out behind him in the Lesmos, and Jose Navas is behind and the Lesmos, both of them running off, and there goes Michael Wynn making a move to get by him. He's going to have an opportunity to look onto Greg Meyer as they get out of the second Lesmo. So this is all really just topsy-turvy. There's really no telling what's going to happen. Maxland Lotto is still our leader, 11 and a half minutes into this race. 7.5, and there goes around Nathan Perkins. Nathan Perkins having a nice drive up from 14th to 9th. Spins it around in the second Lesmo as well. We've just seen 3 or 4 cars all in a matter of 60 seconds go off there. So you're absolutely right. That's one of those corners that's got a little more bank into it. They're definitely taking that curb or getting close to the normal dry line apex. And there you see race leader Maxland Lotto comes down pit lane. So he has made the choice to take dry tires. I think kind of after seeing 3rd place David Borden make the move, the hand's been kind of fed there. But now we'll see Adam Duvall still staying out on the dries. He thinks he can risk it. So far, this is really kind of a gamble for Adam Duvall to have an opportunity. Last year's champion, he certainly knows how to handle these Formula 4 race cars. That's going to be his gamble to possibly make a move for the win in this race. Just under 8 minutes remaining. There's still a lot of time.
Oh, Max Lotto with a black flag. That's on pit exit.
Oh.
Not sure if that's a pit lane speeding penalty or an unsafe exit, but either way, Max Lotto, after leading this race and coming into the pits with a nearly I think it was close to 8-second gap by the time he came down pit lane, frankly. He was holding on to a huge margin. That's going to be wiped away. Not only has he come down pit lane to put some wet tires, which I do think is the right call, that black flag, that's going to be a big sting.
That is just an absolutely brutal penalty that Max Lotto has just picked up. He'll certainly have to come back down into pit lane for a drive-through to serve that one. We'll maybe try and see if we can get any clarification after the race on what happened there. But you can see other drivers. We've got 4 other drivers all having to serve the off-track slowdown penalties as well. But Max Lotto is totally out of contention in this race right now, which... for the way the race is going, David Borden is currently in the best position with the wet tire. However, he is a good 35 seconds off of race leader Adam Duvall. And Adam Duvall is
he's out,
or maybe he is in the pit lane. We will have to check on that, but nevertheless, effectively, he has been disqualified. We don't see this too often, but maybe he's had... one too many off tracks. That is what's happened there. There is a enforced penalty limit. I believe it might be 17, but once you do cross into that, you will be disqualified from the race, and that is just tragic to see for our race leader, last season's champion Adam Duvall. Went for the gamble on the dry tires, unfortunately had a massive mistake. And that'll just put him out of the race. And here we see Max Lotto gets himself all the way up to the lead, but he is going to have to take that drive-through, chooses to serve it on this lap. So we've got Sarah Vase still on the dry tire in the lead, being chased down by the first car on a wet tire, David Borden, running in 6th right now. But top 5 right now, Sarah Vase, Greg Meyer, Jacob Guyton, Jose Navas, and then David Borden as he'll go by Max Lotto. Serving his penalty, I do believe. It'll be actually quite interesting. And David Borden does get well by Max Lotto. So, overall, Ron, I think Max Lotto actually isn't going to come out in too bad a shape if he can get things going and get out cleanly. Maybe only fall back into the top 10 with an opportunity with 5 minutes left to maybe earn a few more positions before we get to the finish here, just hitting under 5 minutes to go.
Yeah, I think at the moment for him, it's going to be a battle with himself and Ken Istep heading down to turn number 1 to see who's going to hold on to the spot inside the top 10. Jacob Guyton.
And Jacob Guyton's been disqualified.
Yeah.
Wow, Jacob Guyton has been disqualified. Our second disqualification of the day, and the second time it's happened to a race leader. Jacob Guyton is now out of the race. We can only assume due to the incident as well. And that will put Jose Navas up into the front. The top 3 all still on dry tires. They're about 8 seconds away from getting caught. And there goes David Borden past Greg Meyer. Greg Meyer's had an issue. So David Borden is now on the hunt, 5 seconds behind race leader Jose Navas. He's absolutely going to win this race as long as he keeps the car underneath him. He has the pace. Jose Navas is really having to feather it at this point with 4 minutes left. You've made your bed. You can't pit now. You just kind of have to find a way to tough it out, and the track has only gotten worse and worse and worse. It's now considered lightly wet, so we've gone from mostly dry to kind of wet to now lightly wet. So it's only track conditions are just going off the charts right now. This has just been such a wild and wacky race. A lot of just unpredictable things to see in there. Even Isaac Hammond has been disqualified as well. So I think we have 3 different disqualifications in this wet weather conditioned race that none of the drivers, they all knew it could happen. I think practice really fooled them and really hung them out to dry when it came to actual race time today.
Yeah, no, with no rain running in practice or qualifying, everybody knew that it was going to be a venture off into the unknown, but as somebody who's gotten the opportunity to drive on a wet track with dry tires and drive on a dry track with wet tires, I will let you know that I prefer the former to the latter. However, you get to this point in the race where you just have absolutely zero grip. Sarah Vase proving that as he runs wide through turn number 1, cuts the chicane, and that's got to be P2 for David Borden. Now, we do have to worry, considering we've seen so much of it thus far in this race, the incident points. I don't feel bad about the incident points surrounding David Bourne and everybody else running on the wet tires. Jose Navas, meanwhile, he's holding on to that top spot, and he is crawling around this racetrack right now. Looking at some of the lap times, just on the last lap alone, Jose Navas set a 2-minute 11 compared to David Bourne at a 2:07. Oh, he spins! That's going to be the race lead for David Bourne. Oh, it's going to be close, but that's going to be the spot for Bourne, and he gets it done.
Yeah, they're side by side there for just a second, but Jose Navas is just going to have nothing for David Bourne on the wet weather tire. Oh, just unfortunate. He knew that David Bourne was coming. It was probably going to be hard to stop him regardless once he got there. But just unfortunate. However, Jose Navas is in a good position. Greg Meyer and Sorvez both behind him on the dry tire is going to make it a little bit of a challenge. He needs to do the best he can, try and hold on to stay second onto that podium. Greg Meyer obviously will want something different to say about that as they rip through the Ascari chicane and back down the back straightaway, we can call it. And there's Greg Meyer with quite a moment as well. They're both really having to hang on right now, and Bob Eggert into the top 5 is quite nice. And even Traver Burns, who we've watched go from 1st to 13th to 7th to 13th, is back up to 6th place again. So all sorts of movement happening. And there goes Greg Meyer on the inside. Makes a quite aggressive move. Jose Navas nearly losing the front end. Greg Meyer almost losing the front end. Look at them just absolutely fighting their hands on that wheel as they get out of the Parabolica. And we look on to David Bourne, who's coming across, I believe, to take the white flag for this race. And yes, it is the white flag we were just hearing from race control. One more time around for David Bourne. Really has just put together a pretty swell race. Hasn't had the incidents that we've seen a lot of drivers had. Certainly made the right call to be the first to get on pit road. And there we see Greg Meyer and Jose Navas are still not done duking it out. They have to make it around this track one more time on dry tires, which will not be an easy task. And there's even Sorvez having to compete with Bob Eggert, and Bob Eggert should be able to get by him at some point in this lap. He certainly has the advantage with those wet weather tires, and you can see it. You can just see how much more grip he can get on the exit of that corner there. The car's just staying with him. Sorvez knows not to get into that kind of battle, and actually is going to give up 2 positions. Traver Burns finds himself back into the top 5. So a lot of these dry tires, there's only a handful of them there in the front top 10 that are all just hanging on to get around one more time. And just absolutely wild and wet race we have found ourselves in today. Just unbelievable, quite what we've seen for everything. And there's Jose Navas still trying to hang on to the bottom step of the podium. And here comes Bob Eggert. Bob Eggert's going to get an opportunity running down into Ascari. Looks to take the wide line. He ought to have the faster car, even in a straight line. Just the grip will get through that slight corner. You see Traver Burns is even side by side. He wants to take third, and Traver Burns has to back out just a little bit. Bob Eggert goes through, and they touch. Jose Navas and Bob Eggert get together. Traver Burns is able to sneak by and take into the third step of the bottom step of the podium. But what contact between Jose Navas? You can see Shane Chang is able to get by. Navas is well into 4th. Oh my gosh. Can you believe that Bob Eggert on the wet weather tires is unable to quite get the move? They have a meeting of the wheels, and here it is. David Bourne, 8 seconds ahead, comes out of the Parabolica for the final time. An absolute masterclass in the wet today. Showed everybody how to pull the strategy off with the dry tires and when to make the right call. He will win today at the Monza circuit, and just an absolutely crazy race. Greg Meyer able to get second, and then of all people, Traver Burns gets third, and here's Shane Chang to come across with 4th, his best finish of the season. And Max Lotto, even through his penalty, was able to recover all the way up to a 5th place finish. Wow. Ron, what do you say about that one? That is just something else.
You know, in my time doing broadcasts here on SMB and just generally speaking, this is my 445th broadcast thus far this year. That was probably the most wild race I've gotten to cover. That was pure unbridled madness from start to finish to kind of underscore the insanity that we just saw here at Monza. So for these broadcasts, we always get told who's going to pop in, to have a little chat, to break the third wall right there, to kind of show off the parody of that. 2 of the drivers that we had are going to have a chat with finished first and second. Another one was leading and then got DQ'd. I think I'm looking through. So Isaac Amon got disqualified. Jacob Gunn got disqualified. Adam Duvall got disqualified. I believe Albert Diaz was the first driver to get hit with a DQ a little bit earlier on. He got probably the shortest end of the stick out of anybody in the entire field after starting the race on the wet tires. He then switched to the dries right as the rain started to come, and unfortunately for him, just couldn't hang on to it for long. But that race was absolute madness from start to finish. I can't even supply subjective commentary. I think that race really just speaks for itself.
It really does, and even just getting a second to look at the live timing, just the position changes we hear. Hard Charger, Shane Chang getting fourth place, plus 11 positions from where he started. Ken Estep finishing in ninth, up 9 positions. Michael Wynn up 5 positions. Sora Vase up 4 positions. Greg Meyer, our second place finisher, which we should hopefully get a chance to speak to shortly, comes in second, up 7 positions. There's so many biggers and movers, but at the same time, there's a lot of drivers who all went the opposite way. Minus 11 for Jacob Guyton, minus 13 for Adam Duvall getting in their disqualifications. Minus 3 for Max Lotto, although he had quite a nice run. And even Trevor Burns getting in third was still down 2 positions. I mean, that was just the most topsy-turvy way we've seen a leaderboard work, I think, ever in my existence of broadcasting anything. And man, what a show, what a pleasure. That is just something else. We're so happy to put on for you here at Slow Motion Broadcasting. Make sure you want to see intense action like this on the Sim Racers Group Formula 4. Hit the subscribe. Tuesday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern. We are here all season long to bring you this kind of hard, intense racing action. And wow, what a day. I think we've got Adam Duvall, I think, down here. Obviously had the issue in getting disqualified, so a little early out of the car. Let's see if we can maybe have a moment with him while we're getting the final grid kind of sorted out. I think that's taking a little bit there. So let's speak with Adam for a moment. Hey, Adam, this is Kennan up in the SMB booth. You got a copy?
Yep, I'm here.
Yeah. Obviously a wild day. Certainly a disappointing day on your end, coming in 17th in the DQ, but we appreciate you getting in here to kind of share your emotions, but just tell us how you're feeling after all that.
Well, so I'm trying to not do so much F4 to try and work on my F3, but I couldn't resist the rain race, and now I'm somewhat regretting, but you know what they say, stay off the painted lines, you know?
Yeah, it seemed like the track started out, obviously it was fully dry throughout practice, and then bang, right at the start of the race, it looked like maybe it would hang on, and then the conditions just deteriorated so quickly. So last season's champion, it's obviously a pleasure to get to have you out here and get into one of these Formula 4 machines. Certainly a pleasure, and not the race you wanted to go, but what other races do you think we might be able to expect to see you in a Formula 4 car this season?
Maybe the Snetterton race. There might be one other. We'll see. I don't think there's too much rain on the forecast for those, but you never know. So we'll see.
Yeah, certainly. All right. Well, we're right down looking at Snetterton there. And then before I let you go, anybody want to give a thanks, a shout out to? Obviously a disappointing day, but certainly always a good day when you get a chance to be on the racetrack.
I mean, the whole crew here and you guys are so awesome. The whole SRG crew is awesome. Just thanks to the whole community for letting us have fun on a Tuesday. Even on a bad day, it's still a good day. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you're right. And we're really thankful you guys put on such a good show. It makes our job up here just so easy. Maybe today wasn't the easiest. That was quite to keep up with. But man, it's just always a blast. And thanks for coming out, Adam. We look forward to seeing you maybe at Snetterton, maybe a few other races throughout the season. Thank you, and best of luck in Formula 3.
Cheers.
Cheers. And I am hearing that we've got the finishing results actually ready. I think if you want to go through and maybe run down so we can remember who even finished where in this event. Obviously, David Borden, the man at the top, made the right call, the first to pit and switch to the wet tires, and comes out your winner by 8 seconds over Greg Meyer, who actually managed to hang on dry tires and stayed ahead of Trevor Burns, who we noted in third. who had quite a wacky race as well. And then 4th place, best finish of the season, Shane Chang and Max Lotto are 2nd place in points, finishing in 5th. Bob Egger with an absolutely fantastic run, best finish so far this season as well, I think, in 6th. Sora Vase in 7th, Michael Wynn in 8th, Kennan Stepp in 9th, Jose Navas in 10th, James McDonald in 11th, Brian Rice 12th, Ken Glasser 13th, Nathan Perkins in 14th, started where he finished, and Jacob Guyton in 15th, Isaac Ammon in 16th, Adam Duvall in 17th, and Albert Diaz in 18th. And then I got Dan Clark, Rudy Samudio, and Sign Nathan bringing up the rear. I'm not sure if Sign Nathan did actually take the starting grid today. So I think we've got some other people down there. Ron, who are you wanting to talk to the most? I think we might have you caught up with both of them.
Yeah, so it looks like I've got a good selection of drivers that I can have a chat with. So I'm going to do this in reverse order, and I will give you the opportunity to have a chat with David Bourne here in a couple of moments' time. But I'll drag in Greg Meyer to have a chat with our P2 finisher, and a driver who finished in 2nd, even though he ran most of the race on dry tires. So, Greg, welcome into the broadcast booth. It's P2 for you here at the end of this race. Before I ask you about the race, I want to ask you, how in the world was it to keep it on the road for the most part on the dry tires come time for the end of this?
Honestly, yeah, and I had dry tires all the way through, and it was wild. But I love the rain, and this was perfect for me because I've been practicing the rain, and I was like, it was about 2 laps too many. It would have been perfect, but the last 2 were insane. I was just trying not to wreck. Even the last corner of the last lap, I just was going like 20 miles an hour, so slow.
And now, I said at some point during the broadcast how, from my own experience, driving on dry tires in the rain is always a bit more fun than driving wet tires in the dry. Would you say that statement is fair, even though you're probably skating around like a declawed cat trying to climb up an igloo at some points during this race?
Yeah, I agree with that statement. It is true. It is fun, but it is stressful. I think at one point, the last couple laps, there was corners where I wasn't even barely braking. I was just using engine brake and not even really turning and just kind of slightly adjusting, letting the weight of the car turn. Yeah, it was very touchy.
Yeah, very, very touchy indeed. It seemed like this was a pretty challenging race, but next time out, as we swap out 2025 for 2026, we're going to be running at Lebanon in 1 week's time. That track, even though it's part of base content, is always a bit of an unknown quantity, so what are your thoughts heading there?
Honestly, I have no idea. 1 week at a time. This is equals my best finish, so I'm excited. And coming off of an off week, I didn't race last week, so I'm pumped, and I am excited to see how it goes next week. But I have no idea. I have no experience on it. We'll see.
Well, it's awesome to have a chat with you here, man, at the end of this race, and love to hear your perspective of driving around a car on a slip and slide come time for the end of this race. But, Greg, we'll let you give any thanks or shout-outs before we let you go and celebrate this P2.
Cool. Yeah. Shout out to SRG. Thanks for doing this, and Slow Motion, and also shout out to my mom. I hope she's listening. Thank you, guys.
Oh, there you go, man. Greg, thank you for joining us here on the broadcast booth. Have a happy and healthy new year, and we hope to see you back out there on the racetrack at Lebanon next year.
Thanks.
And that right there was Greg Meyer, our P2 finisher here in this race. And Kennan, would you like to have a chat with our race winner of David Borden? He had a pretty wild race.
Yeah, let's have a chat with him. This is going to be quite an interesting interview. We were here with David Borden, our race winner today. Absolutely thrilling victory to pull off making the right call and when to go to wets, and then pulling off the fantastic drive coming out of pit lane in 10th all the way back up to take the lead just in the closing laps. David, I know you're probably got to be worn out handling it. You made the right call. How are you feeling getting this victory today?
Oh, it's fantastic, man. It's fantastic. I'm sure you remember last season, it was the exact same situation, but I went on wets initially and ended up having the whole field lap me. So this time, a little bit of vindication there.
Yeah, absolutely. There was almost 3/4 of the field, if I recall correctly, started on the wets and dry conditions, and the track just didn't quite come together in time for that to work out. But today you made the absolute perfect call. You kept the car clean all day. We saw just about everybody else but you in the field have some sort of issue throughout the race, and you managed to not have that. So What do you think you attribute to having just such quality skills come into this wet weather racing, especially at such a track with the high speeds of Monza?
Well, we did a lot of practicing with the group this week. We practiced dry, significant wet, and also in lightly wet. So I did my best to prepare for the race. But even then, you know, I didn't really get many laps on slicks when it started getting wet, and then then to switch to the wets on the track that's getting wet, that was a little sketchy as well. But we were able to keep it on the track, which is the most important thing.
Absolutely, and you certainly proved to do it the best today. But I did want to speak to that and ask you just the way, how quickly in your eyes did that track just seem to deteriorate? Because it seemed like, okay, maybe by halfway we'll really see things kind of change. But it was maybe 5 minutes in the race and cars were going off left and right. It seemed like it just turned into a handful in a very short period of time.
Yeah, it did. And what's been interesting too is that when I would load into different sessions during practice this last week, it wasn't super consistent, which I'm sure is the way rain is, and so you just kind of have to feel it out. But yeah, it went bad really quick when the guys in front of me started going off, and they're excellent drivers. I knew it was time to go in. Interestingly enough, when I came out and I was, like in 10th, and I kept, doing lap after lap, and that didn't come down much. I'm like, wow, they're still out on slicks. How are they doing it? So that was pretty impressive. Like Greg being able to make it all the way to the end on slicks. I don't know how he did it, and pull off a second. That was really impressive.
Yeah, it really was. Second place, the next finisher behind him was, Sarvazen. 7th was the next one on dry tires. Greg Meyer did have an absolute run. We're not really quite sure how he did it, and he may not even quite know either. But sort of looking forward to next week. We go to the Circuit de Lebanon, and that one's kind of a different sort of track, not one that we always see run all the time. And very, how do you feel in your experience kind of going there? What do you have for expectations going into next week off of this win?
Well, I have none because I haven't ever seen the track. I haven't been on the track, so I'll be doing a lot of practicing this week, I suspect.
Yeah, I would say so. It's a track I don't even know if I've actually turned a lap on. I guess it's one of the rarer ones, but certainly an absolutely beautiful facility out there at Lebanon. So I think it ought to be a good race altogether. And before we let you go, once again, congratulations on your victory. Take a moment, give a shout out, thank a fan, whoever. The floor is yours.
Yeah, I just wanted to, again, thank Jason and his crew for having a great group, and the guys are they're all super. It's a lot of fun to race with these guys, and also huge thanks to my wife for supporting this kind of insane hobby. She's been really supportive, so it's been good. And of course to you guys too, because you're kind of the icing on the cake for this whole thing, to be able to share it with friends and family members and stuff. That makes it real special.
Oh, well, David, when you put on drives like you did today, it makes our job quite easy, although somewhere through the field it wasn't as easy like you gave it to us today. So that was an excellent job, man. We look forward to seeing you next week in Lebanon. Once again, congratulations on the victory. Go enjoy it.
Great. Thanks again, guys.
And that is our race winner, David Borden, winning by 8 seconds. Just an absolutely dominant race. And we really appreciate all of our viewers, all our subscribers for enjoying today's broadcast. And remember, if you haven't clicked the subscribe button, hit that subscribe button. We have all sorts of racing all week long. We're happy we're getting to close out the year with you, and we're already ready to bring in a new year of slow motion broadcasting. And let's see what we've got coming up next. Tomorrow, Sim Racers Group Formula 3 is back again at the Hockenheim Ring, where Formula 4 was just at 1 week ago, so you know that's going to be an absolutely thrilling race at 10 p.m. Eastern. And then we've got the Weekend Warriors Formula V Saturday, 2:30 p.m. Eastern, running the Barber Motorsports Park, which will be quite a good thrill for those Formula V machines. And then we've got the Cross Series League Racing Sunday, 8:10 p.m. Eastern, racing the Watkins Glen Boot, which is always one of the greatest tracks in the service. And then next week you'll be able to find us back again as the Sim Racers Group Formula 4. We'll be in Lebanon, France at the Circuit de Lebanon for another action-packed 20-minute event that we just cannot wait to get to again. So that is everything we've got coming up over the next week. And Happy New Year to everybody. Happy New Year to all our viewers, all our subscribers. We really hope you did enjoy this broadcast. Congratulations again to David Borden, and just a wacky, wild, what event for coming out on top as the victor. And we look forward to seeing you next week live from Lebanon, France. Good night.